Jason Wilde.
Typically, in most years, when we've done this show and we still have an hour to go before the schedule's released, we only have 6, 7 games. Got a game here from Demovsky that he was reporting on, game here from Huber. But no, Matt Schneidman, 11 hours ago. We've had the Packers' full schedule, Jason, for 11 hours already because Matt Schneidman got his hands on it and he let the masses know what the Packers' schedule looks like for all 18 weeks. As this is the schedule release show on ESPN Wisconsin, I'm Gabe Neitzel along with Jason Wilde. Were you surprised that Schneidman was able to get his hands on this thing and get it out to everybody? Because it makes this show a heck of a lot easier for 2 hours, Jason.
It does. No, I wasn't surprised because there were a number of us that had folks who shared this information. I was not necessarily expecting it to be released in its entirety.
Sure.
At 6:30 this morning. I hadn't even talked to you guys yet. I had just woken up. And so here's the deal. And I don't know who Matt Schneidman's source would have been. I don't know how he got it. I know how I found out. My thing was, I was just going to say, you're not going to believe this, but they've got 5 scheduled primetime games. Because to me, that and the Thanksgiving game were the headlines.
Oh, 100%, Jason. I had set an over-under line of 2.5 when we first started talking about this earlier this week. 2.5 primetime games for the Packers, which, of course, they sprinted past to get to the maximum of 5 that you're allowed when the schedule initially comes out.
And for those that are listening to this fine program and are not on Twitter, who don't know what the schedule is, I don't know, are we supposed to, be careful and build up the suspense for hour 2? What's the protocol here?
No, I think
because not everybody's on Twitter, not everybody's reading everything.
All right, I think we can just run through it real quick. I mean, it's out there, and we're going to be talking about it like it's out there, Jason. So I'm not, we're not under any constraints where we have to keep this thing a secret. So I'll just run through it real quick since I have it in front of me. The Packers will open up Week 1 and Week 2, both road games, at Chicago Week 1, and then at the Falcons in Week 2. Jordan Love will make his home debut, first start inside Lambeau Field, September 24th, Week 3. That's followed by the Packers' Thursday night football game, early one against the Lions at home, before they will then travel to the Raiders in a long week, going from Thursday night football to Monday night football in Week 5 at the Raiders, and then an early bye, which is interesting to me, Jason, because they decided not to have the early bye coming off of London last year. So I can't imagine the Packers are happy with that since they did not want the early bye last year. Although, different team, young team, maybe they're okay with it. We'll discuss more later. Week 7, at Broncos. Week 8, home against the Vikings. Week 9, home against the Rams before traveling to the Steelers in Week 10. They'll be home against the Chargers in Week 11, have another short week because they're playing on Thanksgiving at 11:30 a.m. at the Detroit Lions, so both Lions games are going to be on Thursday, before then having a scheduled Sunday night football game, December 3rd, home against the Chiefs. They'll be at the Giants for their Monday night football game in Week 14, home against the Buccaneers in Week 15, at the Panthers on Christmas Eve in Week 16, at the Vikings on Sunday Night Football, which can be flexed, December 31st, and then Week 18, because the NFL's done a thing where they have some games Saturday, some games Sunday, and they kind of spread it out a little bit. Everything's still TBD, but they'll bookend the season against the Bears, Week 18, home against Chicago.
So a couple of things that when I got my meat hooks on this morning, I actually was hearing it last night, I would say this. Yes, 5 primetime games, but the league clearly doing some hedging because 3 of those 5 primetime games are subject to flex scheduling. Because remember, we have now crossed the Rubicon to Monday night games being flex eligible, which, again, I don't blame ESPN or Joe Buck and Troy Aikman for maybe wanting some better games on Monday Night Football. Totally understand it. Inconvenient, to say the least, for fans that might have tickets to said game or might be traveling to see their team on the road to said game. But, again, not surprising. So the good news, if you're a Packers fan, is that if you're planning a trip to see the Las Vegas Raiders and Davante Adams and Jimmy G against Jordan Love and Christian Watson, and see if the Davante Adams matchup with Jair Alexander is something that they do, or maybe Joe Barry decides he doesn't want to match them up, you don't have to worry about that game getting flexed. But those last three, the Chiefs game, the Giants game, and the Vikings game, all subject to the possibility of being flexed. Now, hey, maybe the Packers are off to a great start, and they don't want to mess with any of those games. And certainly the Packers are a great national television draw. So that, to me, was the most interesting thing. They move on from Aaron Rodgers, and for the 10th consecutive year, they have the maximum of 5 primetime games plus the Thanksgiving game. I thought that was, when I saw the schedule, that was the thing that I was like, ooh, this is something that I might want to share. And then I looked at Twitter and said, oh, this is something that Matt Schneidman has already shared.
That's something that's already out there. That is certainly the thing that is most interesting to me, is the NFL kind of hedging their bets. But because the Packers are still a draw, and there are a lot of going to be, I just think about back when Aaron Rodgers first became the starter, Jason. Their first game was primetime. They opened up that Monday night at Lambeau Field against the Vikings at home. So the fact that they were going to get early games, that's not shocking to me in the least, that they would get early games. That's not surprising. Thanksgiving, Packers on Thanksgiving, they're kind of part of that. Although it's been a while since they played at the Lions on Thanksgiving, but I've got a lot of memories of them playing against the Lions. Not shocking.
10 years.
10 years since they've played on Thanksgiving. Well,
last time they played on Thanksgiving. Last time they played on Thanksgiving was 2015 when they hosted. 2013, last time they played in Detroit, and the Matthew Stafford-led Lions beat the Aaron Rodgers-less Packers. Remember, that was after he'd broken his collarbone in 13.
That's right.
40-10, marking the first time in 10 years that the Lions had won on Thanksgiving at their own place.
A little bit of a different story now, but the other thing that I think is worth noting, and so much can change, and this was kind of noted, I think, when Matt Schneidman had tweeted this out earlier today, the early portion of the schedule certainly better than the later part of the schedule. Their first game against a team that qualified for the postseason in 2022 is not until Week 8 when they host the Vikings. So while a lot of these teams always expect to be better, especially when you draft as high as teams like the Bears and the Lions had those early picks, and the Saints. But at the same time, this is, to me, a nice, easy start for Jordan Love. And by the way, I want to get this out of the way too, because there could be people out there like, oh, it's the schedule. You already know the opponents. What's the order matter? Well, the order matters to me quite a bit, because when you think about back to last year, when the Packers had the early, one of the earlier London games, they elected not to have the bye, and maybe that kind of helped them go into the tailspin that they did early and could not dig themselves out of the hole. They missed the playoffs, and who knows, if they make the playoffs, maybe Aaron Rodgers is still a member of the Green Bay Packers instead of them deciding they want to move on and go to Jordan Love. So I think the order of the schedule, especially when you have a young team, it really matters, and especially when you're trying to build up the confidence of not just your young quarterback, but the young receivers that you have, the young tight ends that you have. The youth on this team definitely need some confidence early, and given what they have, that stands out to me, that you can get some of that confidence early for the squad.
Well, first of all, Gabe, astute points as always. Second of all, one of the great things about having the schedule early and maybe being sworn to secrecy and not putting it out there is that it allows me to work on my story for the State Journal throughout the course of the day.
Ooh.
So I don't have to wait to find out, or if other people get little tidbits. So there's been a couple times where I was able to get the whole schedule. I was able to pre-write my story. It worked out great today, right, because I'm talking with you. And it would have been really hard to write in commercial breaks during the 7 o'clock hour. So I was able to put together a couple of factoids that I think are useful to your point about especially starting out with some of these, shall we say, less likely to be good teams.
Sure, I like that.
Right? Because let's be honest, you can't just say, well, the combined, even though I do in my story, the combined records of these teams last year is this.
Yep.
That doesn't necessarily mean anything, because take a look at the Minnesota Vikings. They won 11 one-score games,
Yep.
and they went 13-4. I predicted that they would be a playoff team in their first year with Kevin O'Connell. I thought, hey, these guys could be a lot like Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur were in their first year. A breath of fresh air. Kirk Cousins doesn't have a coach who hates his guts anymore and throws him under the bus all the time. The opposite was the case with Rodgers and McCarthy. So you didn't expect them to go 13-4. So whatever their record was the previous year, here we have to be a little bit careful of that. But that said, the combined records of the Packers' opponents, which is 14 teams, 17 total games, 137, 151, and 1. Those are the combined records from 2022. That is a .476 winning percentage. And if you use that metric, which, again, I have already said is not an accurate metric, so I don't know why I'm telling you this, it is the 9th easiest schedule based on winning percentage of your opponents. Okay?
And, yeah. And part of that is the benefit, I guess, if that's the lack of a better term, I guess, of being a third-place team from a year ago. You play the other two third-place teams of the division you're not playing in the NFC. And, oh, by the way, you're playing what could possibly be the worst division in football in the NFC South. Like, the NFC
Correct.
South is just up for grabs in terms of the quarterbacks that are going to be good, the teams that actually might be good. The only one that was decent last year, the Buccaneers, clearly they're rebuilding after Tom Brady retires. Like, there's not a lot of experience in that division, so that is something that works to the Packers' benefit as well, which is great when you are a young team.
Yeah, the Buccaneers, since you bring them up, are one of 5 teams that are on the Packers' schedule this year that made the playoffs a year ago. The Chiefs, the Chargers, the Buccaneers, the Giants, and the Vikings. On the flip side, out of those 14 opponents, half lost at least 10 games last year. The Bears, the Raiders, the Broncos, the Rams, the Panthers, the Saints, and the Falcons. And you've got the Saints early, you've got the Falcons early, you've got the Bears early. So to your point of, I don't want to use easy, because we heard Jordan Love yesterday say, I know it's not going to be easy.
Yep.
But maybe less daunting of an early season schedule than if you got the Chiefs out of the chute and you got a couple of the other good, whether it's the Chargers or the Giants, whoever it might be. And to your point about London, I do think it's a funny coincidence that they were supposed to, or they had the option to take the bye after their 5th game, which was in London. And I try not to be a what-if guy. I'm terrible at avoiding it. So what if they take that bye and Aaron Rodgers has at least 1 week to A, rest his broken thumb, which he broke in London, and B, contemplate whether it's really a good idea for him to play or not, and say, hey, you got 1 week already where you don't have to play. Let's just have you sit out the next 2, and then you can come back and really be closer to 100%, plus the added bonus of we can see if Jordan's any good. And instead, they did not know the bye was going to be as late as it was, but it turned out to be with 4 games left in the season. So not exactly ideal in that scenario. So the what-if game is totally understandable. Bottom line, this time around, they're going to play 5 games, and then they're going to have a bye, and then they're going to play 12 games in a row. Last year, they played 13 games in a row, then had a bye, and then played 4.
The one thing they do have going for them, and they probably talked about it last year too, Jason, the Thursday night, 2 Thursday games kind of give them 2 mini buys as well. Maybe that could help out for them as well. You can join the conversation, 800-990-3776. What's the thing that stands out to you the most about the Packers' schedule as it has been released today? Of course, not officially. That's not happening for another 45 minutes. But what's the one thing that stands out to you the most? Join the conversation, 800-990-3776. Jason Wilde and I continue next to break down the Packers' schedule on our schedule release show on ESPN Wisconsin.
More of the NFL schedule release special coming up on ESPN Wisconsin.
RJ Schenner has several Toshiba copier printers from James Imaging Systems. IT manager Gabe Colasari.
The reason why for James Imaging is their responsiveness, dedication, knowledge of the product, and they always make sure that the customer is taken care of.
The kind of customer service you'd expect from a 100% Wisconsin-owned and managed office technology company like James Imaging Systems.
We actually have a high-end printing machine on site, so we produce our own catalogs, so we need the support to handle that.
James Imaging Systems, better document imaging technology, better service.
When we got a problem, we're able to call in and get it rectified or corrected without any issues.
Gabe, any advice to other local businesses?
Contact James. they'll take care of you.
James Imaging Systems, reliable document imaging technology, extraordinary local service. Call 262-781-7700 or visit jamesimaging.com. James Imaging Systems, your local office technology partner.
Cousin Subs is spicing things up this summer with 2 new limited-time-only subs and a new shake flavor. Their new Sriracha Ranch subs feature your choice of chicken or steak, blue cheese crumbles, onions, pickles, sriracha, and ranch dressing, all on Italian bread, and are sure to make your taste buds dance. And don't forget to pair your sub with their new cherry lime shake. All are available for a limited time only. So order yours today at any location, online, or via Cousins mobile app for a limited time only. Cousin Subs, we believe in better.
Your first night camping alone. The new tent, fully set up. Your bug spray, barely keeping up. But you got this. Just like Associated Bank's got you with free overdraft protection transfers. So when you bought all those supplies and lost track of your spending, we had you covered. You got this with free overdraft protection transfers from Associated Bank. See associatedbank.com/checking or ask a banker for details. Member FDIC.
There's only one place in Milwaukee where every day of the year, dreams and reality get together for a great time. Where you can walk in a player and walk out a winner. That place, Potawatomi Casino Hotel. With fantastic dining, gaming, sports betting, a luxurious hotel, and endless ways to win, the excitement never stops. The only thing missing is you. Your win is waiting, only at Potawatomi Casino Hotel. Visit our website to learn more. Must be 21 to enter casino.
On Thursday, May 18th, join Sharp Literacy for the 8th annual Unwrapped Milwaukee fundraising event from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at The Gauge. Unwrapped is an evening of community, creativity, and food. Top area chefs will create gourmet appetizer, entree, and dessert bites using McDonald's ingredients. The fundraiser will support Sharp's STEAM-based educational program serving thousands of urban elementary students in 50 Milwaukee, Waukesha, and Racine schools. For tickets, visit sharpliteracy.org.
The Club at Lac La Belle is the birthplace of golf in Wisconsin, with a rich history you will feel once you arrive. Experience a round at the Club at Lac La Belle. The redesigned course is open to the public 7 days a week. Schedule your tee time today at clubatlaclabelle.com. This is a golf destination that you will want to play over and over again, and enjoy fine dining and event space after your round. An historic past meets a vibrant future. Go to clubatlaclabelle.com to start your journey.
Don't you wish your life came with a warning app?
Stop. That dog does not want to be petted.
A heads up before something bad happens.
You should not send that text.
Uh-oh. Life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few healthy changes, you can reverse prediabetes and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. To learn your risk, take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
You're listening to the NFL Schedule Release Special on ESPN Wisconsin and streaming live on WisconsinOnDemand.com.
The Packers' schedule is out. 5 primetime games for the green and gold. Officially, it's going to be coming out about 40 minutes from now. I'm Gabe Neitzel along with Jason Wilde. You can join our conversation at 800-990-3776. What's the first thing that stands out to you about the Packers' schedule? And it is, to Jason, the 5 primetime games that just really stick out to me. And it's funny because you look at the 5 primetime games, but then the other thing that sticks out is all of the noon games. It wasn't very often the Packers played at noon last year, but right now, in terms of games, because they're at the Broncos, so that one would have to start at 3:15 or 3:25, just based purely on where the Broncos are located. But when they have the option of starting at noon or that 3:25 slot, more often than not, it's going to be noon this year. So the NFL is still kind of hedging their bets about how good this Packers team is going to be.
Hey, can you see me on the video stream, or how does that work? I can just see you?
Yeah, right. So I don't have the video stream up. I mean, I suppose I could probably pull it up, but I don't know how delayed
No, it's
that
fine.
is,
I was just I know what a fashionable guy you are, and frankly, I'm used to doing a show with Mark Tauscher every day. I don't know if I've ever gone 20 consecutive minutes in any show that we've done together talking about sports the entire time. And we just did that. So I was going to ask you a fashion question, so
sure.
I put up my hood. I got this Wisconsin Badgers hoodie, but it's short sleeve, which of course you can't see because you're not looking at the video. But it's short. Where do you stand on the short sleeve hoodie before I talk about noon games?
Okay, so the short sleeve hoodie, I am in on. Sleeveless hoodie, I think, is a cool look as well.
I can't pull that off.
Yeah. I mean, of course, you have to be of a certain body type to necessarily pull that off.
Indeed.
But I don't know if either of us are there. But the short sleeve hoodie's really been a baseball thing, Jason. Like Craig Counsell always rocks the short sleeve hoodie. And I did not learn this until, so I've got one of those City Connect, the different kind of colored hoodies. And
like the Weber Grill or whatever else it is that they've got. Yeah.
And another buddy of mine also has that same hoodie. And he was like, man, Counsell's a short sleeve. I wish I knew. I wish they sold the short sleeve one. There's a seam where you can actually cut off the sleeve right on the seam so you can make your own short sleeve hoodie the way Craig Counsell does. So I like the short sleeve hoodie. I'm a big fan, so I've got a lightweight hoodie on right now. I've been living in lightweight hoodies just because they're fantastic. Well, thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. Short sleeve hoodie I'm in on, and I think I'm honestly, Jason, a little surprised that you would have a piece of Wisconsin Badgers gear, even though it is your alma mater. I feel like you have been always, like, every time I see you, it's always Oregon.
Well, I have a diverse wardrobe, but as many of our streaming video fans have learned, even though I don't necessarily shower before every show, because I like to get a workout in after I talk to you, Jen, and Chewy.
Yeah, it's tight. It's a tight timeline. I get it.
And then shower after. Well, because if you shower before you do a radio program and then you put the headphones on, then you've got headphone head or headphone hair.
Yeah.
And I got enough hair issues. I don't need to exacerbate them with that. So but I found that I'm having to, go to more hoodies or other nice shirts because now that people can see me, I can't be wearing like just a worn old jockey white T-shirt. Not that I don't love my jockey T-shirts, but I need to probably dress it up slightly with, say, a hoodie because that's what I consider dressed up over here. But this was my first short sleeve hoodie, and I'm still undecided on it. But I came across
it
at the local
comfortable?
Goodwill.
Especially once you start getting it, I don't know how warm it gets down in your office where you do all your shows, Jason. Like if it gets a little warmer down there, it's just kind of nice to have the short sleeve versus the long sleeve hoodie.
Well, there's a lot of hot takes that get delivered down here, so that usually raises the temperature. I just was curious, but since you're not watching, I'll have to show off my fashion sense another time. Your point about noon games, though, if we don't count the Thursday Thanksgiving 11:30 start, 8 noon games. That is the most they have had in the last 4 years. Last year they had 5 noon games scheduled. The year before
I feel like that
had,
even got flexed out of noon. You know what I'm saying, Jason? I don't even know if they played 5 noon games last year.
Right. I believe they got moved to a 3:25 once, and they obviously the last week of the season they got flexed to a 6th primetime game. They weren't ready for primetime the way they performed against the Lions with a berth in the playoffs. Theirs for the taking. But you're right. There are a bunch of noon games, and they do have the flexibility to move noon games to 325. They also have the flexibility to cross networks now. Like, I know you're a little bit younger than me, but me growing up, like, the Packers were on CBS when I was a kid.
Sure.
And then they were on Fox when I was in, like, high school and college. And now they could be, even if they're playing an NFC team, they could be, again, popping up on CBS instead of being on Fox. So it'll be interesting to see if they stay at all those doing it. If Jordan Love plays better than we expect, and the people around him, since there's so much focus on him, mature faster than I personally expect, hey, this is not a great, challenging schedule. This is not an impressive conference. There are not a ton of quarterbacks where you say, ooh, I don't want to have to face him. So there's all kinds of opportunity on this Packers schedule.
Well, so I decided to take a look before, and the Vikings had a terrible passing defense last year, by the way, but I stopped at the Vikings because we've kind of been talking about how their first handful of games are against non-playoff teams from a year ago. And other than the Saints, those pass defenses don't scare you either, which is great for a young quarterback kind of easing his way into the league. The Bears were 17th. The Falcons were 25th in passing defense. Saints were second. Saints had a good pass defense last year. Lions were 30th, Raiders 29th, and the Broncos 12th. And the Vikings were a really bad pass defense as well, so you can throw that in there. The first 7 games against teams that really struggled against the pass a season ago. And I think that's really good just in terms of building that confidence, because I feel that can be, not that the Packers won't try to insert all the confidence that they can into Jordan Love, but to me, confidence comes more from how you look in press conferences and how you do in practice. Yes, those things are well and good, and they develop a base for you. But if you're not playing well in games, like, the rest of that doesn't matter as much. You're just kind of fighting to find your confidence in games. And with the way the schedule opens up, not just, again, how bad necessarily the teams were last year in terms of their overall record, they weren't very good against the pass either, which could help Jordan Love get some confidence early.
You couldn't be more right, because what that confidence, and look, Jordan Love talked a lot about confidence yesterday, right? We asked a lot of questions about it. I didn't think my question was Debbie Downer by any stretch, and I don't think Jordan did either. But talking about the possibility of the downs that go along with the ups. When we say, hey, rookies have their ups and downs, right? We were saying it last year about the wide receivers.
Yep.
Hey, that's true. And there are ups, right? Romeo Doubs, before his ankle injury, lots of ups.
A lot of them.
And some downs, including mental mistakes that Aaron Rodgers criticized, although not by name, even though we all knew who he was talking about, on Pat McAfee. It was him, and it was Amari Rodgers. And anyway, Christian Watson, some downs early on. Drops a touchdown on his first NFL play. Has an injury, in and out of the lineup. But, man, for those 4 games that he played, talk about some ups. That 4-game stretch where he had 7 touchdowns. Now, again, he also had some downs after that, right? The Minnesota game, he had 1 catch for 11 yards. Mm-hmm. So that's what happens with young players, and that's going to happen with Jordan Love. And what I want to see from Jordan Love, whose personality, everyone will talk about how even-keeled he is, which, I don't know. There's a lot of adjectives you would use to describe Aaron Rodgers. There's a lot of adjectives you would use to describe Tom Brady. I'm not sure even-keeled is in that conversation for either of them. Calm under pressure, maybe, but certainly not even-keeled. And so how is he going to handle the ups and downs? And is being steady like that, is that what you want from him? Or do you have to have a guy who can, and maybe in a more constructive way than it appeared from Aaron Rodgers at times, do you have to have a guy that can get after guys and chew them out when they need it? And these are all questions that they don't know the answers to yet. They have theories, but they don't have answers to them yet. And so confidence and all the other things that come with it come from experience. And Aaron Rodgers was one confident cat going into his first year as the starter. And guess what? He had some mistakes in that season, too. He had really good numbers. And their defense gave away 4 games where he got them the lead to the fourth quarter, and sometimes in the last 2 minutes, and the defense gave it back before the end of the game. So understand that. that there are going to be those ups and downs, but you want those growth opportunities certainly early in the season, and if you get some of those growing pains out of the way, it gives you a chance to be better late in the year.
Jason, I know you love using this term on your show, and I don't know if it's ever been more true than what I'm about to say right now, because it might be past his bedtime. I have no idea. I typically don't see or interact with Mark Chmura this late, and I understand it's not that late. The sun is still out, but he's a weird dude, so we'll find out. Scheduled to appear. Mark Chmura next on the Schedule Release Show on ESPN Wisconsin.
We're back with the NFL Schedule Release Special after this on ESPN Wisconsin.
The only thing that tops our selection is your savings discount liquor.
Ever notice how wine enthusiasts often speak a completely different language? And while that language may technically be English, to most people it's anything but. Hi, this is Marie from Discount Liquor, where we stock over 8,000 varieties of wine and speak many dialects of wine English to help everyone, from the wine novice to the master sommelier. So if you need an expert recommendation for wine, or maybe you know what you want and simply need help locating it, our experienced staff has got your back. No matter the budget, occasion, or your level of wine expertise, Discount Liquor will make you feel at home. Discount Liquor. Unmatched selection, everyday low prices, a helpful staff, and 2 convenient locations. In Milwaukee on 51st in Oklahoma, and in downtown Waukesha on Barstow in Maine.
Discount Liquor.
Have you taken a look? Do you see what's coming up on the calendar? Are you prepared? Did you already get a gift, or are you predictably behind on your Mother's Day shopping? Let us help take your gift giving for mom up a notch. A gift basket from the Home Market, a $100 gift card to Benson's Restaurant Group, and of course a big bouquet from Welke's Milwaukee Florist can all be yours to share with mom. Visit Welke'sMothersDay.com and register through May 11th. Make sure mom knows how appreciated she is this year thanks to Welke's Milwaukee Florist. Official contest rules are available at ESPNWisconsinContest.com.
Hey, this is Bo stepping in for Ridgetop Larry. Ridgetop Exteriors is Wisconsin's #1 choice for roofing, siding, windows, and doors. We are the trusted local experts who live and work in the areas we serve, which means we're helping friends and neighbors too. On top of that, Ridgetop Exteriors offers the most affordable payment options, including no interest and low interest financing. For your free estimate, visit ridgetopexteriors.com. Roofing, siding, windows, and doors. Visit ridgetopexteriors.com.
Are you looking for the perfect restaurant for your next night out? Then make Aria, the acclaimed restaurant inside St. Kate, your next dinner destination. Specializing in artisanal American cuisine, Aria features carefully prepared seasonal entrees along with a robust selection of craft cocktails, wine, and local beer. Join them on Sundays for the restaurant's famous trademark chicken, served family style with sides like mashed potatoes, goat cheese biscuits, and more. Make your plans today to dine at Aria. Learn more and make reservations at aria@stkate.com. That's aria@stkate.com.
Jeff Levering and wife Ashley are thrilled with their brand new Pella patio door.
It's like having a brand new kitchen. It's so bright, it's so clear. I can see the kids outside playing, and it makes it comfortable for the life we live, which is an active one.
I love the roll screen. The fact that the screen is on the inside.
For the first time, our whole house actually feels like the same climate.
And no drafts. I don't have to have any of those extendo cornhole bags anymore. It's a game changer.
I'm Gina Della from Pella, and if you order today, get 0% interest for up to 48 months. At Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin, we strive to always give the best possible quality of service. Our experts provide an in-home consultation where they'll listen to your needs and help choose the perfect products for your home, which can be customized to fit any decor. The installation is completed in as little as a day with no mess and no hassle, leaving nothing but perfect results. Order today and get 0% interest for up to 48 months at PellaWI.com.
Certain restrictions apply. Offer ends 5/31/2023.
Here's a fun fact for you. The average chameleon can point their eyes in 2 different directions. On the other hand, the average human can't. So unless you're a chameleon, there's absolutely no way you can focus on texting and driving at the same time. So don't do it, unless you're a chameleon.
Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
This is the NFL Schedule Release Special on ESPN Wisconsin and streaming live on WisconsinOnDemand.com.
That's why the scheduled to appear is such an important phraseology that I love that Wilde and Tausch use. Because when I booked Chewy this morning, I knew there was going to be a possibility that when we called, he did not answer. And that's what we're going through right now. Maybe he'll call us back, maybe he won't. It is our schedule release show. Gabe Neitzel, Jason Wilde with you this evening. Entire Packers schedule is out. We'll run through it later for you as well. But if you want to see the entire thing, you have to just log on to Twitter and check out @Matt Schneidman. He is the Packers beat reporter for The Athletic. He released it earlier today. The official schedule release is coming out in about 25 minutes. But with the bye being so early, Jason, as it comes in Week 6, do you think Matt LaFleur has learned his lesson after last year? Because I think the team really took on his approach, his attitude about playing in London, and that kind of had, I think a down effect of what happened in London for this Packers team. And if he's upset about having an early bye in Week 6 again, I think he's just better off trying to not publicly make that be known the way he did about the Packers playing in London last year.
Look, I think Matt LaFleur, despite what maybe Aaron Rodgers sometimes hinted at, usually has a pretty good pulse for his team. Mm-hmm. I think he has a pretty good understanding of which buttons to push, and I don't know if he pushed the wrong button or should have just stayed out of the control room entirely, but he was bitter about London from the very start. And he admitted at the end of the season, again, one of the benefits of having the schedule early, I was able to write my State Journal story and go back in the archives and track down this quote when Matt LaFleur in November talked about choosing not to take the bye in Week 6. Hindsight's 20/20 in terms of whether or not we should have taken the bye after the London trip. Anytime things don't go to the level that you want them to, you've got to look at everything critically. Absolutely, I've wrestled with that. All you can do is move forward and learn from every experience, both good and bad. It's a tough lesson, I would say, considering where we're at. But it was the decision that I made, at the time, and what I thought was the best for our team. And it's hard to say if that was the right decision. No, it's easier to say it was the wrong decision.
Yeah, especially with the benefit of hindsight.
But it wasn't just the decision, to your point. It was also how publicly he bemoaned the trip to London. It was he made it very clear he did not like going to London. He did not want to go to London. He had been to London with the Rams. He had been to London with the Titans, and he knew that it was a daunting task. But he set the tone, and Aaron Rodgers, whether he should have or shouldn't have publicly, basically hinted, hey, you should embrace this. We're not embracing this. And so you're right. I would hope, if you're a Packers fan, you would hope that he took a lesson from that and said, okay, I can't take that kind of approach with anything about the schedule that I don't like this time around.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, London, yes, while he had dealt with it, it was the first time that he dealt with it as a head coach. It was the first time the Packers as an organization dealt with going to London since they were the last team to go over there and play. And I can't imagine, and maybe it's different this year because he felt he had more of a veteran team last year and thought they could, navigate it, obviously not knowing that the bye would be as late as it was. But if he's unhappy with an early bye this year or feels that they got an unlucky break somewhere else, it's about taking more of a positive attitude towards it. And the reason why it stood out so much more, Jason, because I feel like LaFleur doesn't typically share a ton of those feelings. He's done a pretty good job of, talk about staying even-keeled or the old McCarthy boring by design. He's not voicing his, a lot of the times he's not voicing his displeasure with his players. He steps up and says, I need to be better. Us as a coaching staff needs to be better. When he steps up to the podium, he protects his players, and that's kind of become almost his crutch at this point as everything falls on him. So for him to be as vocal as he was last year, it just stood out more. And if he feels that way about anything that fell on the 18 weeks that come up for them this fall and winter, I would like to think that Matt LaFleur, especially again, he's been the head coach now for 4 seasons. He's about to embark on his 5th season as the Packers. He's still a young head coach, and there are still things that he has to learn.
He does, and he has to grow from them. And quite frankly, the other part of it is, if you look at what happens when you have, I always use this, right? It's one of my few things that I say that you really enjoy. Aaron Rodgers was the great deodorant. He covered up the parts of your team that stunk. And that includes coaching sometimes, right? Whether it's Joe Barry's coaching, or it's Matt LaFleur's coaching, or Mike McCarthy's coaching, or whatever. That's the beauty of having a Pro Football Hall of Fame caliber quarterback, is that it gives you a little more room for error. The margin for error is greater because he can pull you out of the fire. Well, guess what? He's gone. And Jordan Love doesn't have the experience yet. Now, could he eventually become that good? Sure. Who are we to say that that's impossible? Do I think it's likely? I don't. But I think if you are a coach who had such a great record after 3 seasons, and you have to at least attribute some of it to the fact that you had a Hall of Fame quarterback making your job much easier and sometimes much harder with some of the stuff that he would do, now it's on you. There's some pressure on you now. How are you going to design an offense that allows Jordan Love to be successful? Can you make some mistakes that Jordan Love is going to bail you out of, or do you have to be more on point with just about everything you do? I would argue that Matt LaFleur's margin for error is smaller, that Joe Barry's margin for error is smaller, that everyone's margin for error is smaller, at least in the short term and maybe the next 2 years with Jordan Love at quarterback.
To your point about coaching, this is why I still think they need to add a veteran, whether it is a tight end, whether it is a wide receiver, whether it's both. I have no idea if Jason Vrabel's a good coach or not. I have no idea if John Dunn is a good coach or not. For those who don't know, that's the wide receivers coach, Jason Vrabel, tight ends coach, John Dunn. And just based on the way that, the way I've gotten to know Chew and the way that Mark Chmura every morning on Jen, Gabe, and Chewy has talked about, kind of playing under Mike Holmgren and the coaches that he had, and he was fortunate to have 2 coaches that went on to have success as head coaches, as his position coach, Andy Reid and then Mike Sherman. Coaches have guys that they trust, even within the coaching staff. There are guys that they know aren't necessarily good coaches, and having another veteran is just going to help the development of the guys that they currently have. And that's going to help Matt LaFleur make his job easier. So those are still things, and I know we're just talking about the schedule, but those are still things I think need to be done before we start worrying about the Bears on September 10th.
Look, I don't know what player acquisition is going to look like moving forward here, but all indications we have gotten, because the 2 questions, and Gabe, I know you've heard us ask these, the 2 questions that have been asked the most in terms of roster building left to do between now and the start of training camp or the start of the regular season is, do you need a veteran wide receiver? Do you need a veteran tight end, one or the other, or both? And do you need a veteran backup quarterback? And I believe they have made it abundantly clear they're not adding any of those things, at least not right now. Now, maybe I always thought maybe they would get to June last year and say, oh, we probably need another veteran wide receiver. Now, Rodgers said after the loss to the Lions, when again, he did not take enough responsibility for throwing the interception with a game still in the balance and a chance to win the game, that Goody promised him a wide receiver at the end of training camp and another one at the trade deadline, and he got neither one. So, if we look at, from his perspective, and the fact that he kept his jersey, the last game of the season. We all believe that, too. There were holes in the roster, in his opinion, and now he's getting to build his own roster with the wish list that he didn't have out in New York. But if you're Jordan Love, who has no juice to be able to do this, wouldn't you like to have some veteran guys? Like, I can tell you this, when Bill Huber from Sports Illustrated reported that Mercedes Lewis is not being brought back, didn't say that Mercedes Lewis didn't have any interest in coming back. I'm guessing there were some people that weren't real thrilled to learn, I mean, I'm sure they knew long before Bill reported it, that was off the table. I think the head coach really wanted him back. I think Jordan Love probably wanted him back.
By the way, the coach had said so, 12 hours before Bill reported that?
That's correct. I'm guessing that Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave would have liked to have him back. I mean, there's so much value in that. And again, Tausch loves to give me a hard time about this. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. But I want Matt Ryan as the backup quarterback. I understand he was washed. I get it. You don't want him to be your starter, which is what the Colts had him doing. But you got a former MVP who has played in Matt LaFleur's system. I mean, I know it was Shanahan's in Atlanta, but I think you want somebody who's going to know how to support Jordan Love and help him get through the ups and the downs. There's a guy who's had them both. He'd have some value. Instead, the idea of having Sean Clifford as your primary backup or Danny Etling, again, I don't want to get into the R word. I'm totally done arguing that with people.
Sure.
What does it tell you if you are willing to potentially go into the season with a rookie fifth-round pick as your primary backup for Jordan Love, who, by the way, suffered an injury in a preseason game that cost him some preseason time a couple of years ago? That would say to me that you're not expecting that your roster is playoff caliber, that if you lose your former first-round pick quarterback, you want to make sure you have somebody that can win games for you. Because Sean Clifford may have been a fine draft pick in the fifth round. I don't think there's any evidence that would tell you that he's going to win games for you in the NFL in 2023.
And I'm at a point, Jason, where I don't care about the record. It's about the growth of this team because,
amen.
Gutekunst has made it perfectly clear how he feels about this team through his actions, which is fine. Like, at some point, as much as they had chased with the salary cap, you got to hit the reset button. That's fine. But I want these young players to have the best chance at success. And without any veteran leadership in those rooms, it feels like they're being thrown to the deep end of the pool and going, best of luck to you guys. Hope you make it.
They are being thrown into the deep end of the pool. I've heard that phrase before, and as someone who didn't learn how to swim and barely knows now, that I'm not sure there's a more terrifying analogy for me than that one.
Well, okay. I don't share much about my personal life, Jason, on the radio, and so I have no idea if my wife's going to be okay with me sharing the story, but here we are.
Blame me.
Literally one of the most scared times I have ever been. So my wife does not know how to swim. I learned how to swim, young age. I'm a fine swimmer. I can hold my own, whatever. We are in Greece for a friend's wedding, and it was a beautiful time, great time, and one of the activities that was planned, we go out on a boat. And, kind of going around the island that we happen to be on, and the island kind of pulls up to this little bay, and a bunch of us get out to just jump in the water and swim around. And, she was like, okay, I want to get in, and, there are enough tubes or whatever that we have that she can just kind of float around in the water and not have to worry about swimming. Well, she decides to get in. I am not really that close to the boat, so I see her starting to climb in, so I'm like, okay, I got to get over there. She slipped on the ladder and fell in. Luckily, there was another person who was at the boat that was very, very close, strong swimmer, so he was able to get her, get her up and then get her onto the, get her a life vest or a little tube to kind of float on. But I was terrified and don't know if I've ever swam faster in my life. So yes, that is a terrifying analogy that maybe I should avoid since it does involve one of the times I've been most scared in my life.
So just so you don't feel like you overshared on her behalf, I will briefly share my swimming history. So when I was very young, I think I was 5, my mother was pregnant with my younger brother, and we were at Disney World, and we were at the Polynesian, which has a little the moat or whatever you want to call it, the lagoon that the tram goes across, right? So I'm out there, a typical 5-year-old, swimming and splashing, whatever else. It's not very deep, but I step in a hole, twist my ankle, fall backwards.
Oh, no.
And, again, it was only like up to my waist as a 5-year-old, but I panic. I suck in a bunch of water. And my mom, 8 months pregnant, waddles out with my grandmother sitting next to her on the beach telling her, no, he's fine, he's just playing. And my mom saying, no, I don't think so, waddles out, 8 months pregnant, rescues me, because I would have drowned. Like, if my grandmother's advice had been heeded, I would not be here today. I had nightmare. I ruined the rest of our trip. I was a basket case. So my parents, being responsible at the time, enroll me in Milwaukee Public Schools swim program on Saturdays at Hamilton High School on the south side of Milwaukee. And the instructor looked like Santa Claus. Swim trunks and no shirt and a very large belly that shook like a bowl full of jelly. When he passed away many years later, there was an obituary in the Journal Sentinel about him, and he had taught, according to this story, nearly 250,000 Milwaukeeans how to swim over the span of his career. So an incredibly successful swim teacher. You want to know who his biggest failure was?
Jason J. Wilde?
I would go, my dad would drop me off. I would go into the locker room, little Jason, little JJ, change into my swim trunks, come out, sit on the bleachers at Hamilton High School. This Santa Claus-like teacher would invite me into the pool. I would say, no, I can't do it. I'm scared. Okay, I'm not going to make you. Class would end. I would walk back to the locker room, put my clothes back on. Out I would come. My hair wouldn't be wet. My dad would say, did you get in the pool today? I would say no. And so it wasn't until we had the girls, I took some adult swimming lessons. I would not have been able to save your beautiful wife. So thankfully, I was not.
You were not the closest person. You were not the person closest in that situation.
So anyway, throwing them into the deep end, while accurate, I think we've officially, for the final, hour and 9 minutes of this program, we have officially banned that analogy.
It seems that we have. The Packers schedule is out. What about some of the other games that have been released before the NFL's 7 o'clock show coming up? We'll discuss those coming up next on the Schedule Release Show on ESPN Wisconsin.
More of the NFL schedule release special coming up on ESPN Wisconsin.
ESPN Radio Sports Beat with Jason Fitz.
There's a lot of conversation right now around the Celtics, and specifically the failing of the Celtics. Why? Because let's be real, the perception from smarter basketball minds than I am is that the Celtics are a more talented team than Philly. But despite that, they now trail in this series 3-2. And when you're talking about talent not materializing the correct way, you have to look squarely at Joe Mazzulla, the head coach. Now, I think there's a really fair conversation to have when it comes to Mazzulla and the fact that he's young. He's learning on the job. This is his first opportunity. The only problem with that conversation is the Celtics needed to identify that early on. If you have a team that is in their championship window right now, and you are suddenly in a situation, fairly, that you need a new coach, don't you have to at least look at either your coach or your bench coaches and ask yourself, does this guy have the experience we need right now? Because we're not built to win later. We're built to try and win a championship this year. I don't think Boston thought of that when they decided to take off the interim tag for Mazzulla. And now his learning curve is their problem. In 60 seconds, what all of this means for Philadelphia.
Imagine you're looking at a balancing scale with everything you do for other people on one side and everything you do for yourself on the other side. If it isn't balanced, maybe it's time to spend a little more time on you. And therapy is a great place to start. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist online who can help you find that balance and stick to it. Visit BetterHelp.com/score to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/score.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Thinking about gas mileage. You know, changing your oil with a full synthetic oil like Valvoline Advanced can help your engine get more miles. Right now, buy a 5-quart jug and get a free STP Extended Life Oil Filter. That's right, free. Get started on your next job today with the parts you need, when you need them, at AutoZone or AutoZone.com.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Let's be honest about how we've treated Philly at times throughout the course of the conversation. I've said how many times that James Harden sometimes forgets how to basketball, right? We've all seen this moment where Harden just sort of lays an egg. And every time in this playoff run, we've thought this could be that moment. Instead, he's come up big. In the meantime, Joel Embiid has been Joel Embiid, and a roster that is actually deep is showing that depth. Now all of a sudden we can have a real conversation when you look at what Philly's been able to do and ask ourselves, is this finally the moment, not just for the 76ers, not just for Joel Embiid, but specifically and maybe most importantly, is this the moment where we all change the way we view Harden? That's all happening from one series. With the ESPN Radio Sports Beat, I'm Jason Fitz.
From big tailgate parties to cozy dinners for two, the freshest ideas start with a stop at Century Foods.
Now through Wednesday, save on 24-pack 0.5-liter bottles, essential everyday purified drinking water, 2 for $6, limit 4. 12-pack 8-ounce bottles or 6-pack 16.9-ounce bottles, Splash Blast flavored water, 2 for $6. 18 to 80-count box, hefty trash or tall kitchen bag, $7.99. 46 to 48-ounce carton, Blue Bunny ice cream or frozen yogurt, $3.99.
Hey, why'd you throw my glass across the room?
I have to keep practicing.
The vase from Aunt Sophie?
I'm warming up in case I get to take the mound at American Family Field. Read this.
Win the ultimate baseball fan experience at Century Foods?
You either get to throw out the first pitch, hold the finish line for the famous racing sausages, or be on the field during batting practice. My new TV!
Just doing a little batting practice of my own.
The ultimate baseball fan experience from Century Foods. Return the entry form found in the weekly ad to any Century by July 26th.
You're listening to the NFL Schedule Release Special on ESPN Wisconsin and streaming live on WisconsinOnDemand.com.
Entire NFL schedule going to be released in about 4 minutes or so, but the Packers was leaked earlier today. Matt Schneidman of The Athletics, the one who got it out. But
spoiler alert!
As the NFL does, Jason, they'll release some games on their own. Like they released the international games earlier this week as we got closer to Thursday. What the opening game of the year is going to be, a couple of other, primetime games, some games that are going to be on Christmas or on New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, some of those things. But the one that shocked me the most, because the Chiefs' schedule is loaded. They're in the AFC. It's tough. There are a lot of really good teams in the AFC. And yet, it is the Detroit Lions who get the assignment to open up the NFL season on the road at Kansas City. Did that surprise you the way it surprised me?
It did, but boy, people sure love the Lions, don't they?
They really do.
I don't want to speak for Tausch, and I don't know if he's scheduled to appear later in the program. I know he's a busy hockey dad, and Lord knows I had enough of him for 3 hours earlier this morning. But he talks a lot about how he kind of regrets in 2016 kind of pulling for the lovable losers for the Cubs to win their first World Series since 1918, because then obviously Cubs fans became insufferable, and we already didn't like them because they were in the division, but hey, it's a good story, whatever. The Lions are getting that treatment. Like, there is an excitement about Dan Campbell and look, Ben Johnson, their offensive coordinator, is a really smart guy. He is one of those kind of innovative minds that have come along in the last couple of years where you're like, oh, he's doing some things that I haven't seen before. You get excited about that kind of stuff. But I think it's a little dangerous for them to be the darlings that they are, and I'm still in you're going to have to prove it to me mode. They moved on from a running back who led the NFL in touchdowns last season. Yep. Someone that the Packers also moved on from, by the way, in Jamal Williams. They went 8-2 over the last 10. They certainly came into Lambeau Field and won a game when they had nothing but pride, Lions pride, to play for. I would argue that the Packers lost that game. I'm not sure.
I would agree.
I don't want to offend. I don't want Dan Campbell mad at me. I like Dan Campbell. I like his whole shtick. But I don't want him biting my kneecap because I said the Lions didn't win that game. The Packers lost that game. But that's how I see it. So I was surprised that they would put them in that spotlight too. But again, for a team that hasn't won an NFL title in the Super Bowl era and whose last title is, 1957? Hey, I hope people are in Detroit and Lions fans everywhere get to enjoy an exciting season. But clearly the NFL is putting them in a position where the expectations will be high.
But I was also shocked, Jason, because is NBC just supposed to ignore the betting scandal that happened in Detroit? Like, Jameson Williams is supposed to be one of the more exciting young receivers in this league, and he's not going to be eligible to play in that game because he has to be suspended for 6 games. Like, NBC is just not going to mention that at opening night, that there's a reason that the Detroit Lions aren't playing at full strength. Like, it almost shines a light on that when you're the only game happening. It was on top of Yes, the Lions are fun. They're young. They're exciting. They still have to prove it to me, too. But on top of that, it's not just that. It's also, oh, by the way, they've got a pretty big scandal going on with a number of players who were suspended.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Gabe, and look, this is not a subject that I want to delve into on the schedule release show just because I feel very strongly that this is a very dangerous thing that they have chosen to pursue because there is an incredible pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for the league to get a piece of gambling money. I get it. I understand the economic realities of it, but the level of disingenuousness about how you have all these gambling partners, but you have these different stipulations on players on what they can and can't do. Hey, you've let the fox in the hen house. You have to live with these consequences now. And those consequences have included, and I think the NFL likes this, frankly, because they want to be able to make examples of people so they can scare players straight and have them not have this happening on a regular basis. But you're right. It is a black eye for the Lions, and more importantly, it makes it more difficult for a Lions team that everyone has high expectations for to be as good as they would be if this hadn't happened.
Packers schedule officially released, even though we've had it for about 12 hours or so now. We'll continue to break down the Packers schedule, take a look at some of the primetime schedules, all coming up starting in 2 minutes, hour 2, the schedule release show.
Trust the auto experts at Blaine's Farm and Fleet. You know us for tires and batteries, trust and care, offering unbeatable deals on name brand automotive supplies and service. Right now, buy any Trico or Michelin wiper blade, get the second half price. Save 10% on Craftsman truck boxes or Betterbilt job site boxes. And get a free $20 digital gift card when you buy 2 5-quart jugs of Pennzoil full synthetic motor oil. Tires and batteries, trust and care. A Blaine's Farm and Fleet promise since 1955.
Experience the rebirth of an American treasure in Oconomowoc. The club at Lac La Belle is open. The redesigned course is one of Wisconsin's finest tracks at the heart of the Wisconsin Golf Trail. Named Best New Wisconsin Course in 2021 by Golf Digest. The club at Lac La Belle is open to the public 7 days a week. Schedule your tee time today at clubatlaclabelle.com. See what everyone is talking about. The club at Lac La Belle is a place to experience over and over again. Go to clubatlaclabelle.com to start your journey.
That to-do list you have needs one more thing. Chill. It's an easy thing to do. Just crack open an ice-cold Coors Light and chill. Take the afternoon off and binge watch anything. Go to happy hour and stay for a couple hours. Who's counting anyways? Or hang out with just your dog because you've had enough human interaction this week. Whatever you do it with a Coors Light. Mountain cold refreshment made to chill. 2020 Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Celebrate responsibly.
I'm just texting him back. I'm just posting a story. I'm just changing the song.
No. When it comes to distracted driving, just don't. Sending a text takes your eyes off the road for just 5 seconds, but in that time, your car can travel the length of an entire football field. Any distracted driving just isn't worth it.
Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Hey, Greg Scalzo here. You're listening to 94.5 ESPN, WKTI, and WKTI HD Milwaukee.
A locally owned Good Karma brand station.
A new era.
He definitely understands that he's the guy in charge.
A new season.
Just go in there with confidence and don't be afraid to make mistakes.
The Green and Gold's first schedule with Jordan Love leading the charge is released.
Watching him last year, I think Jordan's made some huge strides.
This is the NFL schedule release special.
One thing I do is I tell myself every day that I'm good enough. I have really high confidence in myself.
Here's Gabe Neitzel and Jason Wilde.
Official, it is out. Surprised if no one. Matt Schneidman got it right earlier today when he released the Packers schedule online. 5 primetime games highlights what the Packers have on their 2023 schedule. First of which coming week 4 at home against the Detroit Lions. Thursday night football. Then they'll have Monday night football at the Raiders. And all their games on primetime later in the flex window of prime time, as well as they will be taking on the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday Night Football, the Giants on Monday Night Football on ABC, and a Sunday night football game in Week 17 at the Minnesota Vikings. So, Jason, as we sit there and the Packers have 5 primetime games on the schedule, my question for you is, how many primetime games will the Packers actually play in 2023?
Well, Gabe, I know that I'm going through a period here where I've been highlighting some of the possibilities for their young quarterback, possibilities that he himself acknowledges exist. Look, this is a really hard season to handicap because on the one hand, they are as young can be. And while they don't want to use the R word, their own general manager, Brian J. Gutekunst, called the day that they traded Aaron Rodgers to the Jets a good day for the Packers and a good day for the Jets. He was virtually giddy when someone asked him how beneficial it was to have the $40.3 million of dead cap money for Aaron Rodgers hitting this year. I don't know if I've ever heard any NFL executive be so happy to be having a $40 million cap charge for a player not on his team. Never heard it. They, as we just discussed during the first hour of the program, did not add any veteran wide receiver help, did not add any veteran tight end help, really didn't do anything in free agency other than bring back some of their core special teams guys, not the all-time leading scoring kicker, but others. So it's hard for me to look at this team and say, whoo, that was a 9-8, 10-7, 11-6 outfit here. At the same time, and I think you're on board with this, I look at this conference and think, and this schedule, which is now officially out, kudos to Matt Schneidman for tweeting that the schedule is, quote, officially out now. And I see a bunch of teams that I think are looking the same way at the Packers when their schedule comes out as I'm looking at them. I'm looking at the Falcons going, Falcons? They're kind of starting over at quarterback. They're rebuilding. And if you're doing the Atlanta schedule release show, you're saying, Green Bay? They're starting over at quarterback. They got a bunch of young guys. They're rebuilding, right? You go through the Packers' schedule, and you see a lot of teams that are not established, that are in varying degrees of rebuilding mode. So could I see them winning some close games that they have no business winning, like the Vikings just did, and finding a way to 7-10, 8-9, or, hey, 8-9 may make the playoffs in the NFC. So, yes, I think you can be rebuilding and still be playing in a weak enough division and conference where maybe you could sneak in or at least be in contention late in the season. And if that's the case, then they don't get flexed out. But I'm gonna hedge, and I'm gonna say they're gonna lose one. I think they're gonna lose the New Year's Eve game in Minnesota, and someone else is going to be in that window.
I have a hard time imagining, Jason, this team being as young as it is and as many growing pains as they're going to have to go through together. And especially, I think about the wide receiver position. You know who's had a better rookie year than the two guys we just saw? A very comparable rookie year to the two guys we just saw? Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And nobody was yelling that MVS was going to be the next great thing in Green Bay, right? And he never really developed. He just kind of stayed that speedster guy, and he's carved out a niche for himself, and he got a nice contract from the Kansas City Chiefs, and he's used that speed to his advantage. I think about Devontae Adams in year 2. And, yeah, Devontae became great, but in year 2, granted it was, thanks to an ankle injury in large part that helped zap his confidence, he wasn't very good. And they're relying on Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs, who combined had barely over 1,000 yards receiving last year. There's going to be ups and downs. And look, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that in terms of success in 2023, my expectations are not high in terms of wins or losses. And I have a hard time imagining that game on Sunday, December 31st, meaning really anything for the Green Bay Packers. I just have a hard time imagining it. As young as this team is, Jason, you brought it up earlier this week when you joined us on Jen, Gabe, and Chewy. 3 players currently over the age of 30 on this roster. Well, you don't want, 15. Like, 3 seems like it's a low number. So,
and one's the punter.
Yes, and one is the punter and / holder. He's got multiple responsibilities.
Fair point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I apologize,
Multiple.
Pat O'Donnell.
Yes.
I'm sure you're listening to the program.
Man of many talents. So I have a hard time imagining that Vikings game getting flexed out. I am really curious because this could happen to the Packers and maybe it would be a good thing. But it could go the other way, too, where they get flexed into a Monday night game. How do they handle that? How does Matt LaFleur handle kind of being a team that ends up playing on a Monday night when they thought they were playing on Sunday or vice versa? I'd be curious to see how they handle that. I'm curious to see how often the NFL is willing to flex games into Monday night football. But they'll be in that flex window when they play the Giants on December 11th as well. The one that sticks out to me just is Minnesota. You even if the Packers are a terrible team, you could convince me that the Chiefs-Packers are still going to draw a number and NBC decides to keep it on December 3rd. But I do not think they are going to play their full 5 primetime games.
And we also have to acknowledge, and I don't think they're in danger of this because they already have 2 Thursday games. One is a Thanksgiving game. I understand that. But it would appear there is a growing belief that weeks 14 through 17 will become Thursday flex-worthy. And if they are slightly out of contention, perhaps I don't think they're going to want to pull them off of Christmas Eve, but they've got a full slate on Christmas Eve, right? That's a Sunday this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so they could get flexed into a home game on the 17th against the Buccaneers, and then the Panthers are struggling with their number 1 overall pick, and the Packers are struggling with, heaven forbid, I don't want to see anything bad happen to Jordan Love, but if for some reason he misses a game or 2 late in the year and Sean Clifford is playing quarterback. Now, let me pivot on that for a second, because here's one of the things that I've heard from folks, including Matt LaFleur to some degree, and that is, well, look at what the 49ers did with Brock Purdy. The Brock Purdyification of the NFL. Mr. Irrelevant. Rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
Went 5-0 with him at quarterback. And then he, what a terrible thing for him, by the way, to have to play quarterback with one arm in that playoff game.
Just set him up.
I would have liked
fail.
to have seen what he could have done. Right? Bring back the 3rd inactive quarterback so you don't have situations like that anymore. But everyone wants to say, hey, if Brock Purdy can do it, Sean Clifford could do it. Or Aiden O'Connell could do it, or whoever got drafted on day 3. Here's what everyone seems, or not everyone, I don't mean everyone, but there seem to be folks that are forgetting this. Veteran tight end, one of the best in the league.
Yep.
In George Kittle. Diversified, one of the top wide receivers in terms of multi-dimensional players in Deebo Samuel.
Yep.
A running back who had been the best in the league, went through some injuries, and was reborn in San Francisco and arguably was one of the best running backs in the league last year, and Christian McCaffrey.
Correct.
And the defense that allowed the fewest points in the NFL. You want a recipe for success with a first-time starter or a rookie starter, that's a pretty good recipe for success. Now, look at the Packers, because Matt LaFleur told us, you heard him say this, Gabe, after the draft, they've been looking at film of the 49ers to see what Kyle Shanahan did to help make Brock Purdy successful. Well, Matt, he gave him Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and the best defense in the league scoring-wise. That's the most important thing that they did, is those 4 things. And then they did some things schematically. And I get it. Matt LaFleur's trying. I'm not ripping him for that. That's great that he's looking at that. But that means that your defense that now has, 8 first-round picks on it? They better play a lot more. They better play a lot more like the San Francisco 49ers defense did than the Green Bay Packers defense did last year. If you want to give Jordan Love a chance to be a 9-8, 10-7, holy cow, these guys, who thought these guys were going to be in this position late in the year type of team?
Yeah, all-pro tight end, all-pro wide receiver, all-pro running back seemingly are good things. And then having someone like Brandon Ayuk be your number 2 wide receiver, who's been a little bit more established than someone like Christian Watson's been, like all those things kind of lean towards, yes, San Francisco has at a pretty good advantage. But at the same time, San Francisco seemingly is always in pursuit of the next big thing because they want a better quarterback to go with all those other very nice things that they have. Yeah, Brock Purdy made it look easy last year because the talent around him was stacked. That's not the Packers' situation. Maybe that's the Packers' situation 3 or 4 years from now, but it's not the reality of what their situation currently is, which is, again, I think why we both believe that game on Sunday, December 31st is not going to actually be a prime time game. What are your reactions to the Packers' schedule? 800-990-3776. We take your reactions as we continue to break it down. Coming up next on the Schedule Release Show.
More of the NFL schedule release special coming up on ESPN Wisconsin.
Injured? Call Gruber Law Offices today. One call, that's all.
Cousin Sub's Game Day giveaway is back. This is your chance to win a $400 Ticket King gift card to purchase tickets to an upcoming sporting event of your choice. Enter at cousinsubs.com/Game Day giveaway now through July 30th. One grand prize winner and 11 guests will enjoy a suite at the Friday, August 25th baseball game in Milwaukee. The grand prize includes game tickets, parking, food, and beverages. Enter at cousinsubs.com/Game Day giveaway. Cousin Subs, we believe in better.
Your first time biking to work. Your new helmet? Secure. Your bike? Road ready. You got this. Just like Associated Bank's got you with Access Checking. It's maintenance fee-free with no minimum balance requirements. So even if down the road that bike needs a little maintenance, at least your checking account won't. You've got this with Access Checking from Associated Bank. See associatedbank.com/checking or ask a banker for details. Member FDIC.
Hi, this is John Neal, CPA and founder of Right Choice Tax Resolution. I just finished writing a book about my experiences dealing with the IRS. It is already a bestseller. The IRS is the most ruthless collection agency in the world. They can seize your bank accounts, garnish your wages, and even take your house. The state can deny your professional license as a teacher, nurse, or other occupation. Do you want your employer to know about your problems? My book tells you what you can do so you don't have to worry about them ever again. Don't bury your head in the sand and hope the problem will go away. It will only get worse unless you step up and do something. We can help. We help reduce or eliminate penalties, negotiate payment plans, and represent you in tax audits. Make the right choice and go to rightchoicetax.us to book a call or meeting right now. We know you want to take the first step in getting the IRS off your back so you can live again. That's rightchoicetax.us.
Life's better with an auto policy from American Family Insurance. No matter what dreams you're driving towards. That's because our expert agents will make you feel totally protected with the right auto coverage at the right price. You'll also save up to 23% when you bundle auto with home. American Family Insurance. Get a quote, find an agent at amfam.com.
Products not available in every state. Visit amfam.com to learn how discounts may apply to you. American Family Mutual Insurance Company, SI, and its operating company, 6000 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin.
Ben Brust here for my favorite racetrack in North America, and that is Road America. Race fans, it's time to make your summer plans for fast family fun at Elkhart Lakes Road America. Experience 10 major races from vintage weekends to high-thrill NASCAR racing at the best NASCAR track in America. Bring the entire family for more affordable fun with on-site camping, free parking, and most of all, free admission for kids 16 and younger. See the full race schedule at roadamerica.com. Road America, America's national park of speed.
If you're a motorist of the four-wheel variety, please watch out for those of us in Wisconsin who do their traveling on two wheels. Adjust your mirrors to reduce your blind spots. Allow motorcyclists a full lane width. Use your turn signal when merging or changing lanes. And allow more following distance between you and the motorcycle. Motorists and motorcyclists can work together to achieve zero preventable deaths on Wisconsin roads. Zero in Wisconsin. Together we can save lives. Learn more at zeroinwisconsin.gov.
Sponsored by the Wisconsin DOT.
I asked what kind of family she wanted. She said, a family like yours.
Learn more about adopting a teen at adoptuskids.org. You can't imagine the reward. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the NFL Schedule Release Special on ESPN Wisconsin and streaming live on WisconsinOnDemand.com.
What has become part of the culture for schedule release shows is the social media videos that teams put out. And Mina Kimes did a great piece on this. She put it out on Twitter earlier this week, about a 5-minute piece talking about how these things just continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger. I think the Chicago Bears used Seth Rollins, who, Jason, I'm sure you don't know who that is, but as somebody who does GKW, Good Karma Wrestling, he is one of the more popular professional wrestlers in WWE. So using actors and different things like that. Now, I don't think either of us were overly impressed by the Packers release video this year, but it's a spoof on an infomercial, and that's what they did. However, Jen Latto just brought this to my attention, and I just spent the break watching it. The New York Jets had, I don't know, the best she could describe it to me in his Twitter account is just says Google Maps player. I don't know what that means. I don't know if he creates Google Maps. I don't know if he just studies Google Maps. But he had to identify the Jets' opponents. So by guessing the location of seeing a picture that was in black and white and in 0.1 seconds. So he saw the image for 0.1 seconds and then perfectly guessed every opponent in order for the New York Jets. It's insane. It's an insane video. I can't believe that there's a person like this out there that can identify Google Maps photos in 0.1 seconds and in black and white.
Yeah, I watched that too. I don't know if I'm supposed to be weirded out or impressed.
Why not both?
I saw the Chargers, who, if you remember last year, and I think that was one of the ones that I think inspired Mina to do that piece at ESPN.com. They did an anime. Am I saying that correctly? I know your experience and your expertise is in WWE wrestlers, and I'm offended that you thought that I wouldn't know who Seth Rollins was. Even though it's true and I had to Google him. The Chargers do a heck of a job. And look, there are a lot of people pouring their heart and souls into these projects. So I'm not here to criticize, critique. I was a little surprised by the theme the Packers chose. That is a well-worn type of meme that has been, I'm sure, used many times for a myriad of different things. But nevertheless, that's the route they went.
Yeah, I'm with you in terms of the Jets one. Like, I'm just flabbergasted at, and I'm sure there are going to be a lot more that I will be watching over the next couple of days as teams just continue to try to get more and more creative with how they release their schedule. But part of the schedule release, Jason, is also the preseason opponents. Now, we knew who one of those opponents was going to be for the Green Bay Packers because the New England Patriots, we had already found out, are coming in for joint practices. Are those joint practices going to be the most important parts of Jordan Love's development, considering that teams obviously bring all their players typically for those joint practices? They're going to use those guys in the joint practices, and preseason is kind of depending upon who you are, you may or may not be playing.
What I think is interesting is that they find themselves in this position now where Aaron Rodgers, as we well know, A, did not like preseason games, B, did not like joint practices, and C, was so valuable to what you did that you could not afford to have something catastrophic happen to him and under any of those circumstances. There is no doubt that the Green Bay Packers, and I was there, I was speeding in a cab to then Heinz Field, just got there in time for kickoff for that preseason game in 2015 in which Jordy Nelson tore his ACL. And nothing was ever the same again in terms of the Packers' approach to the preseason games. But now I ask you, if you're the Packers, and Jordan Love is the key to your season, but he also needs as many reps as possible. How, and this is a question we'll be asking Matt LaFleur come July, because there's no real point in asking him now, How are you going to balance that? Because those are two equally important issues, right? Keeping him healthy so you don't have Sean Clifford at quarterback, and making sure he's prepared to play quarterback in the National Football League with 157 career regular season snaps. So you've got that scenario. You also have the issue, even though they don't have the Patriots on the schedule, maybe you can be a little more like you were with the Jets, where you don't run all of your stuff and practice is not quite the same as an actual game. But the bottom line is Jordan Love needs competitive periods to get ready. So I think they're going to have to play him a ton in preseason and swallow the risk. And they're going to need him to do a lot in those joint practices as well.
The difference between 2023 and, to me, literally every other year since 2010, I guess you could make the case for 2019 being this case, it not being this, but they ended up going to an NFC Championship game just because it was Matt LaFleur's first year, and you don't know what you're getting into with a first-year head coach. But every year since Aaron Rodgers won the Super Bowl in 2010, Jason, it was Super Bowl or bust for the Green Bay Packers. Super Bowl was the goal because they knew they could get there because they certainly had the quarterback. And obviously they didn't get there, but the most important thing for the Green Bay Packers in the preseason, once Aaron Rodgers had won that Super Bowl, was health. That's not the case in 2023. This is not a championship caliber roster. I've said it before. I'll probably say it 1,000 more times before we get to the end of the season in early January. It's not a championship caliber roster. It's just not. Brian Gutekunst has admitted as such through his actions of, hey, we have championship caliber roster, needs a championship caliber kicker, and they decided to not bring back Mason Crosby. They decided to draft one and continue to develop one. Again, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not a championship caliber roster. And the most important thing for the Packers isn't their health. The most important thing for the Green Bay Packers is Jordan Love developing. And you develop him however you can. That means playing in preseason games. Yes, you protect him the best you can. Maybe it's only a half. Maybe it's playing into the third quarter. The way that they used to do back in the 90s when Tausch and Chewy were playing. Maybe that's part of it. But the most important thing for the Green Bay Packers is the development of this young team. And the only way you can develop in today's NFL is by getting those reps. So that's where, to me, those joint practices are going to be important. And the preseason, for the first time in a long time, is actually going to mean something for this team.
Yeah, and in 2021, when they didn't have preseason in 2020, what happened during the 2021 preseason? Jordan Love hurt his shoulder. And we got a hell of a lot of Kurt Benkert and Jake Dolgala.
I forgot about Jake.
Again, I understand this. I know who I am. I am a helicopter parent. I am a helicopter beat writer. I love Ted Thompson's old line about, I just wish I could wrap them all up in bubble wrap. And that was a little too Forrest Gumpy. That didn't do justice to his voice.
Draw.
But
sure.
The bottom line is there's risk involved in games that don't matter, but you have to get him ready to play. So you have to say, as the great Mark Tauscher would say, the juice in this instance is worth the squeeze. And so again, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how durable Jordan Love is. I saw him stand in a couple of times last season in the preseason and in the game against Philly, and he got smoked. And he stood in and took a hit. And you got to respect the hell out of guys that are able to do that. But if you have to do that for 5 or 6 weeks in a row, then what? Right? Sooner or later, either
it's going to catch up to you.
Misfortune comes, or you're starting to play hurt, or whatever it might be. So, look, one of the things that gives them a chance is if this offensive line, with David Bakhtiari back, the outlier that they brought back when they were getting rid of all the other old guys and not wanting to pay people, he better be good. Elton Jenkins better be good. Whoever they play at center, because I personally believe that that's going to be a competition in camp. Because I don't think they love what they've gotten from Josh Myers. I think they're going to give Zach Tom an opportunity to win that job. And then they've got John Runyon at right guard. They've got Josh Nijman at right tackle. It's one of the areas where they've got experience and talent. And if they can play well and their running backs can run the ball effectively and they can be under center more often than they were when Rodgers was coming back or playing with a broken thumb, then maybe they've got a chance to function better offensively than I think they're going to. Maybe they're going to surprise me. But part of that is going to be you better keep your young quarterback, who also, by the way, is not exactly afraid of anything. He's a pretty fearless runner, which is great until it's not. And he gets a really hard hit. So we'll see how this offense comes together, but they're going to need those preseason reps. And if I was Jordan Love's mom or a Packers fan or just me, because this is how I'm wired, every time he takes a hard hit, I am holding my breath because I want to see the kid have an opportunity to show how good he can be. And having to play him in preseason to get him the experience he needs comes with risk.
800-990-3776 is the number to get into the show, just like Bill, the over-under clergy person from Delavan, just did. The truth is, we don't know what we have. Let's be optimistic. Look, show me a team that's as young as the Packers that has, just been tremendous. They're going to be ups and downs. Like, when I say this isn't a championship caliber roster, that shouldn't be looked at as pessimistic. To me, that's just the truth. And that's the truth, not just from me, but from the man who assembled it. The Packers, again, whatever R words you want to use, whether it's rebuild, whether it's retool, whatever, version of that you want to use, go ahead and use it. I don't care. I don't want to argue those semantics. But at the end of the day, it's a young, inexperienced roster. And that is going to lead to some great moments, and it's going to lead to some head-scratching moments. Think of a young Aaron Rodgers, think of a young Brett Favre, think of a young Devontae Adams, and all the other greats. The Packers haven't really ever had a player just step in and be great from day one. There are ups, there are downs. It's the way it works, learning the NFL and trying to figure it out. And saying that this is not a championship caliber roster is not being pessimistic. To me, that's just the truth. And you can still have fun following this team. You can have fun in the fact they've hit the reset button. You can have fun in that, hey, this is going to be a fun team to watch grow, because in a couple of years it's going to be fun. Think back to 1992 when Brett Favre first stepped in. They didn't make the playoffs that year. They weren't a championship caliber team in 92 or 93 or 94. But they grew and they grew and they grew to what became a top 10 team in NFL history in 1996. I'm not saying that's the way they go, but I'm saying that certainly right now they're not there, and it's just going to take a little bit of time to get there. We'll take your calls. We'll take your texts. 800-990-3776 on the schedule preview show coming up next.
We're back with the NFL schedule release special after this on ESPN Wisconsin.
Milwaukee baseball games. All those reliable sights, sounds, and smells. Like friends, laughter, and the sweet aroma of meat in the air when we tailgate. Speaking of reliability, you can count on Evans Transportation for accounting, shipping, and tracking needs for manufacturers. Just like the boys in blue always give us blazing fastballs, dingers, and high blood pressure in the late innings. We hope to see everyone at a game this season. And go Crew from Evans Transportation in Brookfield.
The only thing that tops our selection is your savings discount liquor.
Did you know that the phrase, "when is Mother's Day," is the most searched when phrase in the world? So just to be safe, let me remind you that Mother's Day is this Sunday. Yes, this Sunday. Need a bottle of wine or champagne for brunch? Or maybe a great gift idea? Remember, moms sacrifice so much for us, and it starts by going 9 months without alcohol. Hi, this is Marie from Discount Liquor, where since 1960, we have provided the best selection and the lowest prices. We stock literally thousands of varieties of beer, liquor, wine, and mixers. Over 15,000 actually, but who's counting? The point is, you want it, odds are we have it. Combine our incredible selection and everyday low prices with our 2 convenient locations, and you've got your one-stop shop for a great Mother's Day gift. Discount Liquor in Milwaukee on 51st in Oklahoma and in downtown Waukesha on Barstow in Maine.
Discount Liquor.
Happy Mother's Day.
From big tailgate parties to cozy dinners for two, the freshest ideas start with a stop at Century Foods.
Now through Wednesday, save on 24-pack 0.5-liter bottles, Essential Everyday Purified Drinking Water, 2 for $6, limit 4. 12-pack 8-ounce bottles or 6-pack 16.9-ounce bottles, Splash Blast flavored water, 2 for $6. 18 to 80 count box, hefty trash or tall kitchen bag, $7.99. 46 to 48-ounce carton, Blue Bunny ice cream or frozen yogurt, $3.99.
Hey, why'd you throw my glass across the room?
I have to keep practicing.
The vase from Aunt Sophie?
I'm warming up in case I get to take them out at American Family Field. Read this.
Win the ultimate baseball fan experience at Century Foods?
You either get to throw out the first pitch, hold the finish line for the famous racing sausages, or be on the field during batting practice. My new TV!
Just doing a little batting practice of my own.
The ultimate baseball fan experience from Century Foods. Return the entry form found in the weekly ad to any Century by July 26th.
Every day, we fight to preserve magnificent places and wildlife. We are Earth Justice, a national legal nonprofit fighting for your right to a healthy environment. Every day, we fight to advance clean energy. We are Earth Justice, 135 plus lawyers representing clients free of charge. Every day, we fight to combat climate change. We're Earth Justice, and we're here because, now more than ever, the Earth needs a good lawyer. Earth Justice uses the power of law to ensure our planet and its inhabitants have a future. No one fights more cases on the environment than Earth Justice. And we win almost every time. Because when we win, the air and water are cleaner, food systems are safer, and public lands are preserved. And we win because these are fights we cannot lose. Want to join us in this fight? The time is now. Go to earthjustice.org today. That's earthjustice.org.
Look out, world, we're getting strong. The future's here and we belong. She can STEM, she can do more. Like build a rocket and watch it soar. Or clean the oceans and make the world a better place. Oh, she can STEM, so can you. Find a cure, invent something new. There's no challenge in the world that she can't face. She can STEM.
Learn more at She Can STEM. A message brought to you by the Ad Council.
This is the NFL Schedule Release Special on ESPN Wisconsin and streaming live on WisconsinOnDemand.com.
Jason Wilde and Gabe Neitzel helping you break down the 2023 schedule for the Green Bay Packers. Again, they'll open up the season on the road at Chicago. Their first home game is against the New Orleans Saints in Week 3, early bye week, Week 6, and 5 primetime games to highlight the 2023 schedule. Taking your reaction, 800-990-3776. We go out to Mark in Glendale. Mark, you're on the Schedule Release Show with Gabe Neitzel and Jason Wilde.
Hey, good evening. I just walked into Walmart, but I'm glad you can hear me. Not so much about the schedule. I have a couple questions about the Packers, specifically draft choices. I don't disagree with any of them, but personal people, why Sean Clifford instead of Tanner McGee or the quarterback that came out from Fresno State that was supposed to be pro-ready? And the other one is why Jordan Reed or Jalen Reed, the wide receiver from Michigan State, in front of Jalen Hyatt. I'd like to see your opinion on those two. And the other thing I just want to say that's a little off the subject, I was fortunate enough to be at the Brewer-Dodger game yesterday. And I don't know how lucky people were to see Clayton Kershaw pitch. The guy is like an artist. I mean, it was my first time. I'm a big baseball fan, and I don't think people appreciate what he did yesterday. That game was an hour, 2 hours and 11 minutes. And if the Dodgers hadn't batted around in one of the innings, it would have been under 2 hours, and it was enjoyable. And I'm sorry the wrong team won, but it's a chance I didn't get very often, and I appreciated it. And I think people should realize, what they saw there yesterday. And thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, appreciate the call, Mark. I have always...
Hey, Mark, I need some strawberries and a box of honeycombs while you're there. So if you could grab those for me, that'd be great.
Is honeycomb the go-to cereal for you?
It was just the first cereal that came off the top of my head. Actually, my favorite cereal is something called s'mores with a Z at the end.
Oh, I'm familiar.
You're too healthy to be eating that sort of thing, but it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, right, Jason. I mean, the best cereal to me is Cinnamon Toast Crunch. But yeah, that's.
I won't fight you.
Yeah, s'mores is. I haven't had s'mores in a long time, but I've seen the box. It stared at me. I've thought about purchasing it. It is. I got to imagine it's still as good today.
$4.98 too, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's never on special. If it ever went on special, where I go on to grocery store, where I go to the grocery store, it may have found its way into my cart and home with me. But
just happy to know that I've got your birthday all taken care of.
Oh, thank you, buddy. In terms of the Packers draft picks, I don't know. When it comes to Sean Clifford, I know that shocked a lot of people, a lot of the people in the draft industrial complex, because they had an undrafted grade on him. I don't know why they went Jaden Reed instead of Jalen Hyatt. Both are similar sizes, but maybe they felt that Reed was a little bit closer to being pro-ready. I'm not sure. I don't know what Brian Gutekunst saw in those two players in particular to take them where he did.
So the quarterback one is interesting, and it is also interesting that because Matt Schneidman posted the schedule at 6:30, we're discussing Clayton Kershaw and some draft picks. But the Sean Clifford thing is really interesting because if you look at what happened in the draft, and I was he talking about the Fresno State quarterback?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Is that what he said?
Mm-hmm.
Jake Hayner is his name, I believe. That's
correct.
He went in the 4th round. He went 22 picks before Sean Clifford did, and he was part of that day 3 quarterback run that we saw. He went, then Stetson Bennett went, then Aiden O'Connell went, then Clayton Tune went, then Dorian Thompson-Robinson went, and then came Sean Clifford at 149. And the Packers, I don't want to say they panicked, because that would not be accurate. Goody explained what he did. He looked at that run on quarterbacks. Sean Clifford was the guy he wanted, and so he decided instead of losing out on a quarterback that he really liked, that, as you point out, most people had going later than that, 6th, 7th, or undrafted, they instead decided to use a 5th-round pick on him. They used a 5th-round pick on a punter before. Mm-hmm. They've also used a 5th-round pick on a multi-time Pro Bowl center in Corey Linsley once upon a time, and an all-pro center. So, look, it's a crapshoot on day 3. If Sean Clifford ends up being a serviceable backup going far into the future, great. But they had him in for a pre-draft visit. They really liked him. They did not have Tanner McKee in for a visit. They had the Minnesota quarterback in for a visit before the draft, so they were intrigued by him. But the reason they took Sean Clifford is they really like Sean Clifford, which I don't know if you're able to hear all that while you're in Walmart, but I hope you'll check out the podcast if you missed it.
Again, this will all be available Wisconsin On Demand. If you happen to miss hour 1, or if at any point you have to leave because you're driving around, you finally get home, time to eat dinner, you can always download all of our podcasts from ESPN Wisconsin at wisconsinondemand.com. Jason, as you take a look at the schedule, and 5 primetime games clearly highlights it, what about bookending the season with the Chicago Bears? I felt that was because it feels like the Packers and Bears have played like week 2 for the last 10 years, and I know that's not the case. They opened with the Bears not that long ago, and of course the Aaron Rodgers my knee game happened on opening night as well. But bookending with your arguably biggest rival is kind of interesting to me. And it'll be a nice barometer for both teams because they're both kind of in the same boat where they're young and they're trying to continue to grow the roster. So to see where they are week 1 versus where they end up being in week 18 in the 17th game of the season is going to be intriguing to me.
Against a team that is clearly rebuilding. Had the number 1 overall pick this year and traded it away and added a lot of assets. Courtesy of Nate Locascio, Packers PR man who puts together the dope sheet. This will be the 5th time that the Packers have opened the season in Chicago. 1979, 1981, 2015, 2019, and now 2023. It is the second time in the history of the, 103-year rivalry that the teams have met in the season opener and the season finale. Gabe Neitzel, for $1 million, what year did the Packers open and close the season against the Bears?
2010?
I'm incorrect. I will give you one more guess, and you are in the neighborhood. Think about a farewell
2000
that may
2006.
Nay!
Well, because I could think of so many I am such... So we have a bit on our show where Chewy has pretty much detoted me because I've been such a Packers toad, and now everybody thinks I'm just negative on the Packers because I don't think they're going to have a winning record this year. But I have so many just vivid memories of the Packers opening against. Like, we were rattling off games on our show, like, because we were talking about opening nights and all these different things, and I had, like, little nuggets I kept dropping in about every game as Jen was listing them off, and they called me a loser for remembering all these things. So I was trying to, I have so many memories of the Packers opening the season against the Chicago Bears, and then closing against the Chicago Bears. There aren't many. They did in 2010, obviously won that game en route to the Super Bowl. But 2006, you mentioned, I thought Brett Favre was going to retire that night because of the way that he cried post-game on the NBC post-game show. And I was actually at that opening game, which was a disastrous start to the Mike McCarthy era when the Packers got shut out at home against the Chicago Bears.
26-0. Yeah. That was a memorable year. I believe that Packers Bears game was flexed into prime time on New Year's Eve that year because I was there, and we thought that we were going to be celebrating New Year's Eve by going to a noon game, and then Paula and I. Boy, that was so long ago we weren't even married yet. I don't remember my life before kids. But we were going to, spend the night on the town, and instead Chris Jenkins, my buddy from the AP, and I instead spent it covering the game while they went out on the town, him and his wife and Paula, and enjoyed it. Look,
they probably had a better time without you guys, let's be honest.
Fair. I drag down the vibe very often. I'm really curious. I think you made a great point, though. I know we got to get to break, but the idea of bookending the season with the same team is going to make for a very interesting comparison opportunity if everyone is still healthy and you're in a position where most of those guys are all still playing, and for the Bears, the same case. Because there was an argument on our program, Wilde and Tausch, 9 to noon each weekday. Would Brian Gutekunst take Jordan Love or Justin Fields? Tausch is convinced that other than Patrick Mahomes, and I don't want to misquote him because he's going to get mad at me, but that there are very few quarterbacks right now, at least certainly not in the NFC, that the Packers would want instead of Jordan Love. I'm eager to see what Justin Fields looks like in year 2 because I think there's a chance he's pretty good, and we'll have to wait and see if that turns out to be the case.
What is the toughest stretch of the schedule for the Green Bay Packers? Plus, I just got the Week 1 NFL opening lines, and they are in front of me. I will pass those along. Are the Packers favored, or are they going to be dogs Week 1? We dive into that. Coming up next on the Schedule Release Show on ESPN Wisconsin.
More of the NFL Schedule Release Special coming up on ESPN Wisconsin.
Life's better with a home policy from American Family Insurance because you'll feel protected no matter how the wind blows. All so you can keep enjoying the home of your dreams. And our expert agents can help you save up to 23% when you bundle home with auto. Insure carefully, dream fearlessly. American Family Insurance. Get a quote? Find an agent at amfam.com.
Products not available in every state. Visit amfam.com to learn how discounts may apply to you. American Family Mutual Insurance Company, SI, and its operating company, 6000 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin.
Have you taken a look? Do you see what's coming up on the calendar? Are you prepared? Did you already get a gift, or are you predictably behind on your Mother's Day shopping? Let us help take your gift giving for mom up a notch. A gift basket from the Home Market, a $100 gift card to Benson's Restaurant Group, and of course, a big bouquet from Welke's Milwaukee Florist can all be yours to share with mom. Visit Welke'sMothersDay.com and register through May 11th. Make sure mom knows how appreciated she is this year thanks to Welke's Milwaukee Florist. Official contest rules are available at ESPNWisconsinContest.com.
Trust the auto experts at Blaine's Farm and Fleet. You know us for tires and batteries, trust and care, offering unbeatable deals on name brand automotive supplies and service. Like all Cooper or Goodyear tires, buy 3, get 1 free. 10% off all Fram oil filters. Rewards members save 15%. And 5-quart jugs of Citgo SuperGuard full synthetic motor oil, $21.99 after mail-in rebate. Rewards members save an extra $2. Tires and batteries, trust and care. A Blaine's Farm and Fleet promise since 1955.
On Thursday, May 18th, join Sharp Literacy for the 8th annual Unwrapped Milwaukee fundraising event from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at The Gauge. Unwrapped is an evening of community, creativity, and food. Top area chefs will create gourmet appetizer, entree, and dessert bites using McDonald's ingredients. The fundraiser will support Sharp's STEAM-based educational program serving thousands of urban elementary students in 50 Milwaukee, Waukesha, and Racine schools. For tickets, visit sharpliteracy.org.
Woo! I am thirsty today. Definitely gonna need a cold one. There's the one. I'm back with Broken Bat Brewery's founder, Tim Pauly, who's going to give us the inside scoop on what's on deck this summer at Broken Bat Brewery.
Usually around 14 to 16 beers on tap, a couple more in cans available. We're super excited to launch a food truck partnership this summer coming in May. That'll be a 7-day-a-week operation, so we'll be adding food to the repertoire. And again, of course, we got the indoor wiffle ball field, man. You can rent it out for birthday parties, bachelor parties, bachelorette parties. If it's fun, you can't take it too seriously. It's legitimately a kid's game that you get to drink some craft beer with. And we're right in the heart of downtown Milwaukee, so I can't beat the location. Great beer, great staff. I can't beat it. That's Broken Bat in a nutshell.
Thanks again to Tim for all the insight on all the great things happening at Broken Bat Brewery. Remember, folks, whether it's games or not, the fridge is always stocked.
Bert Kreischer presents Tops Off World Tour.
I look at my dad, I go, hey dad, maybe we should sit down. I don't think your owl's out tonight. 30 seconds later, whoo, right on top of it we hear, whoo. My oldest daughter goes, Dad, look across the lake at the old man on his dock. There's another drunk, blind old white man just, whoo.
Bert Kreischer live on stage. November 15th, Fiserv Forum. Get tickets at fiservforum.com.
You're listening to the NFL Schedule Release Special on ESPN Wisconsin and streaming live on WisconsinOnDemand.com.
Schedule is out for the Green Bay Packers. And now the lines are out. You knew this was going to be coming quickly. And Jason, I know you love all things gambling. Like to...
Just real quickly, speaking of gambling, I don't know if you've watched the Chargers schedule release video.
I have not.
They play the Lions this year, and so they go through these anime scenes. The Packers one is of Aaron Rodgers in the darkness, and then his little light goes out because he's gone. When they have the Lions week, they show all those disclaimers that you hear in the ads that are set at really fast speed so they can get them all in. If you have a gambling problem, dial 1-800-SO. They spare no one in that video, and quite frankly, the way their seasons have gone, I'm not sure that they have room to criticize, but boy, those are pretty good. They're really good.
I need to watch that one. I mean, the Chargers have had a reputation the last couple of years of having pretty good schedule release spoof videos, as they apparently do again this year. So I got the email from Bet Online. Jason, are the Packers favored, or are they going to be underdogs in week number 1?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they're going to be favored against the team with the worst record in the league a year ago.
They are 2.5-point dogs.
Wow. Get me in on that sweet action, Gabe.
I was a little surprised by that, and it makes me wonder, Chewy asked this question earlier today, how many games the Packers are going to be favored in. When you open up on the road against the team that ended up with the number 1 pick and you're not favored, Lots going to be riding on the first two games, whether or not they're going to be favored at home against the Saints and the Detroit Lions, depending upon how they play against Chicago and against Atlanta. But, Jason, in terms of the schedule, we've talked about the 5 primetime games and the early bye week. But when you take a look at the schedule, what do you think is the toughest stretch that they have? There's not one that sticks out. Like last year they had a bunch of games in a row away from Lambeau Field. No 3-game road trips this year. Everything's pretty balanced in terms of home and away. Only couple of 2-game homestands, couple of 2-game road trips, and that's it.
Yeah, I thought it was really noteworthy. I've always mentioned this during our conversations about schedules each and every year over the last 20 years. Ron Wolf, the first thing he looked for was, are there any 3 straight road games? Because there was nothing he hated more about the schedule than when they got 3 straight road games. And in 1996, when they won the title, they had 2 separate 3-game stretches. The next thing he looked for, how many games in December? Now, obviously, the season now goes into January in the regular season with 17 games, the later start. The Packers have 6 games in January and December, 3 at home, 3 on the road. So it's it's obviously an even split on that. So there are no blatant, oh my gosh, that's going to be a tough stretch. But the reality here, to me anyway, is that now you've got the bye exactly where you didn't want it a year ago. You mentioned that at the beginning of the show. And now you're looking at 12 straight weeks of football. You've got a Thursday Thanksgiving game in there, so you have a kind of a mini bye midway through. But at Denver, which again, easy to say, boy, Denver was terrible last year. Well, now they've got a different coach. Maybe things are different for Russell Wilson there, and they turn things around, and that's a much harder game than it looked like a year ago when they were spiraling under Nathaniel Hackett. You're home against the Vikings, you're home against the Rams, then you have the Steelers and the Chargers, and then that Lions game on Thanksgiving, which is in no way a gimme on the road anymore, and then you've got the Chiefs and the Giants. That is where we're going to find out how much better that team has gotten. That's where we're going to find it out during that stretch.
I could not agree with you more, Jason. And the difference between that Lions Thanksgiving game and the Lions earlier Thursday game, when you're playing on Thursday, every hour counts. And playing at 11:30 in the morning and having to travel on the road, and I know you're at home the week before against the Chargers, but that Lions game on Thanksgiving, coming off of playing a stretch of teams that made the postseason, you have the Vikings, the Rams, and the Chargers 3 out of 4 weeks before that Lions game, and then have the Chiefs and Giants after that. That's that run from October through November. Yes, that's the stretch. You're going to learn a lot. That's where the season is going to be won or lost. If you are a optimistic person who thinks that this team is somehow going to be better despite losing a 4-time MVP and any sort of veteran pass catcher, that's the stretch you're going to find out the most about the Green Bay Packers.
Amen. And we'll see what happens, because we'll be talking about it on your show and mine.
Absolutely, we will. Jason, appreciate you hanging out for a couple hours with me tonight. And I'm sure, like you said, we'll hear more on Jen, Gabe, and Chewy and Wildy and Tausch tomorrow.
It was a pleasure working with you. We don't get to do it enough. I can't wait till we do the Super Bowl preview show together in February. Is that optimistic enough for everyone?
I hope so. I certainly hope so. This has been the Packers schedule release show on ESPN Wisconsin.
Experience, knowledge, and results. That's what you need when you've been in a serious truck accident. Call Gruber's offices. We've successfully helped people